It's June 30th for me, and there's no better way to end the first half of the year than putting out my own top 10 movies of the year ranking. I've seen about 30 to 40 movies somewhere between there in theaters this year. Some that I've loved, some that I've laughed, some I've really enjoyed, and some that I haven't liked that much. Looking at you, House Party. And I thought there's just no better way to put a nice seal wrapping on my first half of the year with this channel and everything I've done than the first 10 movies of the year. So without further ado, let's get started with number 10. The Little Mermaid is one of my nice surprises of the year so far. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like with the Disney live action remakes, but it ended up being a pretty enjoyable movie. I think Halle Bailey does a great job as Ariel. I think the dynamic between Ariel and Eric is so much improved from the original animated movie. And some scenes like Kiss a Girl were just fabulously done. But things like Under the Sea and the first half of the movie just didn't work that as well for me to keep it as high up on this list. But The Little Mermaid is a movie that's still out in theaters. I think it's going to be a big hit on Disney Plus. I enjoyed it seeing it in theaters a few times. Definitely check it out once it hits digital and stuff, or go see it in the theaters with some family members if you haven't seen it yet. I think you'll have a good time and you'll be singing those classic songs. And I think you'll really enjoy the new Eric and Ariel dynamic with their love story and what was built there. Be recency biased because I just have came off seeing this movie last night from when I'm recording this, but I actually really enjoyed Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I think Harrison Ford does a perfect job, picking up an older Indiana Jones, kind of at near the end of his life cycle per se. And it sounds grim saying that, but I thought that the adventure that him and Phoebe Waller-Bridges' character Helena go on was decently well done. I think there's a lot of action scenes in this movie that cause it to go a little bit longer than I would like. There's one action scene I can think of that I would just take out completely, and I think you'd have a better movie overall. But at the end of the day, I think Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny delivers the opening scene super well and the ending scene so well. And there's something about John Williams' score for movies that is just fantastic and enlivens up a movie more than what you get in average scores nowadays. What we get in movies, and I found myself just really enjoying this movie a whole lot. I really bought into the ending and where the movie went in the Indiana Jones type climactic way. But I know this might be a surprise for some people being on my top 10 list. Tell me your thoughts if you've seen this movie and if you think I'm wrong for putting it here. But yeah, that's Indiana Jones. It's out in theaters. Go see it if you're an Indiana Jones fan. I think you'll enjoy it. Elemental. This was a movie that started out on this list being at the very bottom, just getting in. But the more I started thinking about Elemental and the dynamics between the father and the daughter of fire, with fire element characters, and the journey they go on with accepting who she is and her place in life and her relationship with Wade, the water element character. I found myself enjoying this movie so much more. And I've also, as I started watching other movies like Ruby the Teenage Kraken Slayer, I really started to realize that this might not have the superior Pixar magic that you see in movies like Inside Out, WALL-E, Toy Story, The Incredibles, but Elemental is something special. And while it's in theaters, I highly recommend going to see it as a family. It's one that I think you might enjoy over the holiday weekend, the 4th of July. I know it'll hit Disney Plus and it'll do really well there, but Elemental is one that just keeps creeping up on me as one movie that I keep enjoying very much so. Dungeons and Dragons Honors Among Thieves. This is actually the movie I've seen the most this year that as a recently new movie. I love Chris Pine in this movie. I think it has a very fun dynamic. It does comedy very well, doesn't take itself too seriously. I love the fantasy settings. I actually think it has some decent action sequences too. The druid scenes with the shapeshifting, very creatively well done. I know this wasn't the biggest hit at the box office, but it's very available now on Paramount Plus, or you can rent it places like iTunes or Amazon. And it's one that I recommend you go and watch if you like a kind of a fun going comedy with a group of people that isn't taking itself too seriously, but has some cool action scenes and feels it feels similar, but compared to everything else we get nowadays in terms of over dramatizing and taking things too seriously, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves hits the perfect level of classic type adventure movies where you can really enjoy things without feeling like you're going over the top. And I really do enjoy this movie, and I saw it like 4 or 5 times in theaters with friends and family. I've seen it a couple times with friends afterwards. It's a big recommendation for me. It's an easygoing popcorn flick. Not many people I've heard say they dislike this movie. They might not love it and call it a masterpiece, but it's a general crowd pleaser. So if you get a chance, check it out on Paramount Plus. Coming into this year, Makoto Shinkai was not a name that I really even heard of or understood, but after watching Suzume, I've discovered all three of his movies, and he is now a filmmaker I am going to look forward to watching his films the rest of my life. While Suzume may not be as good as the classic movie Your Name, a movie that I highly recommend that if you are a fan of fantasy, relationship style, comedy, great animated movie types, give it a chance on either renting it through Amazon Prime, Apple TV, or see it where this movie will also end up soon, I'm sure, Crunchyroll. But Suzume is probably my biggest surprise of the year. I remember going to see it that night. It had decent reviews overall, but Makoto Shinkai just knows how to tell these interesting family dynamic stories with these characters, but also include outside world type elements in what feels like a very classic Disney Pixar type of way. And in Suzume, you get to see coming of age story of a girl who lost her mother at a young age and is struggling with living with her aunt and accepting where she is with life. And she goes on this adventure closing portals and stopping this giant worm from causing earthquakes to happen in different parts of Japan. And it's just a great movie that was really funny throughout, really charming throughout, did a great job showing off the elements of Japan. I thought the way the third act rounded things up before the main character Suzume and all the side characters that she's been journeying without was also just so well done. This was a very strong movie, and I saw it once in theaters, and I regret not going to see it again because it's not on Amazon Prime yet, it's not on Crunchyroll just yet, and I don't have a Crunchyroll subscription, but I might pick one up when Suzume comes out just so I can check out Suzume, maybe check out Your Name again. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon come together with Viola Davis and Air, the story of how Michael Jordan signed with Nike to create the famous Air Jordan brand. And this movie is one that's available on Amazon Prime Video right now. If you're a subscriber, it's free to watch with Amazon Prime. And go ahead and go do that because it is a fun period piece type movie that kind of tells a great story between Matt Damon's character Sonny and his ambition and really seeing something special in Jordan that you didn't, now looking back is obvious, but they do a great job putting you in that era, creating the stakes of what was going on, and just having a fun, enjoyable movie. There's good comedy throughout. There's really great action throughout. There's some drama scenes. Damon gives a very powerful boardroom speech. Viola Davis, when she comes in, injects a beautiful life and chemistry. Probably one of my favorite female performances of the year so far. Not the best one. I'll save that for later. But if you haven't seen Air yet, give it a chance. Get your Amazon Prime subscription. Rent it. There's no secret with me. My favorite branch of the MCU has always been Guardians of the Galaxy. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 had me worried because the MCU has kind of lost its way in some different, recent movies like Ant-Man Quantumania, Thor Love and Thunder, Multiverse of Madness. But I have to say, James Gunn came in and delivered a great ending movie to this trilogy of Guardians movies. The story that we get with Rocket and his personal history with who became the villain of this movie, the High Evolutionary, was so personal and so well done. And even though the High Evolutionary might have seemed like a blanket person wanting to create a perfect society as a villain, the more you watch this movie and the more you understand it, he is very much somebody who is vindictive, and his motivation isn't as much in this movie to create the perfect society as it is to be, it is out of jealousy with anything. And his hate of Rocket for Rocket's mind and what he was able to become, and that personal story between the High Evolutionary and Rocket on its own was so strong, and and so good for this movie. But adding in the element that's, Peter Quill, Star Lord, had with his crew, and especially the new Gamora and how they handled that relationship and companionship was so well done. It created so funny moments in this movie. I think the layers that were built on Drax and Mantis were decently well done. I think Nebula, when I went to go see it again, she even has her own through line that works really, really well. This is a movie that provides good action, great comedy. It has actually really good character building, and it's a great wrap up of what this trilogy was for Marvel and all these characters were. It's currently still in theaters. It's doing pretty well still. I imagine it will if it hasn't already hit digital to rent, soon. And by the end of the summer, you'll probably see it on Disney Plus. But if you get a chance, go see this in theaters. I think there's a bunch of action scenes and comedy scenes, and the soundtrack. And getting it in theaters is just something special. And James Gunn really delivered a great movie here, and it takes my number 4 spot in my list of movies so far of 2023. In my journey here of going to see more movies and getting this, Regal Unlimited and some of these passes, I've opened up movies, the things I couldn't have imagined that I would never would have watched. Things like, Suzume, or horror movies like Evil Dead Rise. A movie I would never have seen if I didn't have, a unlimited pass to go see movies in theaters is our number 3 spot with The Chevalier. The Chevalier is an amazing period piece movie going over this fantastic artist and French individual who comes from slavery backgrounds, but his mother's a slave, his father was the slave's owner, and you see his journey in becoming a very high profile Frenchman, but also struggling with what's going on in France right before the revolution, as well as the racial tensions that may or may not come with this position. The movie doesn't really give hard-handed the race element per se, but it tells us a great story of this amazing individual that most people don't even realize is an actual real life person, and in some ways the movie itself only glosses over some of the amazing feats the Chevalier was able to do in his life. And if you're a fan of music and theater and period piece art, and especially that era of European culture, the French Revolution, that's around the same time as the American independence was happening, the Age of Enlightenment. It was such a great movie that I think told a really deep personal story. It wasn't that hard to watch. It wasn't heavy-handed with any of its messaging. It really was just exemplifying this individual that most people knew nothing about, in a very just creatively well done way. And the acting performances were so well. The singing and musical performance were so well done. The just easily one of the best movies I've seen so far this year. I imagine if it's not on digital yet, it should be digital sometime this summer. This is one, if you're looking for something in the period piece that you were never even going to check out, give it a chance one night. I think you'll really enjoy this. It's my number 3 movie of the year so far, and it is right up there with my top 2 in terms of my overall enjoyment, and it's one that I can't recommend enough whenever everybody gets a chance to see it. Sony did it again. Into the Spider-Verse was my favorite movie of 2018. Might have been 2017, but either way, I'm pretty sure it was 2018. And the first story of Miles Morales was so well done with the animation, the music, the storytelling. How could Across the Spider-Verse come close to that? And while I won't say it tops the first one, it is neck and neck in terms of quality. The story here of both Miles and Gwen and their inner struggles with their family, with their place in the world, and what people are telling them what they're supposed to do or not supposed to do was so well done in this movie. The animation style and all the different art pieces, again, so amazing the work that went into this movie. This type of animation just breathes so much better than some of the computer animated things we see nowadays, like Elemental with Pixar. And I think we're seeing a renaissance in a way of animated movies to lean more towards these, more artistic, hand-drawn looking styles. But Across the Spider-Verse isn't all about the art. It tells a great story. It has amazing action scenes. It has good musical moments. You have characters being built and arcs that happen throughout the movie. You have a general shocking ending that I wasn't expecting when I first watched it. You have deep intellectual conversations you can create from it. You have so much going on in what was be seen as not just a comic book movie for some people, but an animated comic book movie. This is showing that the medium isn't just as simple as what some other movies you may see out there is. This is now part two of what could be one of the best trilogies, or definitely one of the best modern trilogies out there. If you haven't seen Beyond the Spider Verse, you haven't seen Into the Spider Verse yet, check that out. And then after you watch Into the Spider Verse, go in and watch Across the Spider Verse, because this movie, I think, will give you all the enjoyment that you're looking for. The voice acting is incredible. The jokes land throughout. It has a very serious, fun tone. It tells a great story with family. It tells a great story of many different things, and is overall just one of the biggest blasts I've had in theaters. I've seen it multiple times. I imagine it's going to be in theaters all summer. It probably won't hit Netflix or digital until later this August, maybe September or October. But this is a movie that deserves all the hype that it's getting. Past Lives hit theaters last weekend. It was an A24 and CJ Entis movie, kind of a Korean movie with A24 backing that hit theaters. And it tells us amazing story that's simple but beautiful between two characters who grew up together as close friends and potential soulmates in South Korea. But before they can grow up, the are Na Young, her family decides to immigrate from South Korea, Seoul, to Toronto, Canada. And then that's when the movie allows us to see their lives as they grew up in two different stages. One's 12 years after their move, and then another 12 years after that in life, whenever they're kind of more filled with, in their journeys and where they're at in life. And this movie works best for a few different reasons. One, the score and the music throughout is so tepid, it's so calm, it's so heartwarming, but it's also so intense when it needs to be. This is the best scored movie I've seen so far this year, and I think it's something that gets highly underrated in a lot of people when they watch movies. But the music allows for Greta Lee and Teo, the two adult characters who are playing these potential soulmates, but kind of separated by what their lives has taken them, and gives two of the best, if not the best, acting performances I've seen this year, bar none. Especially from Greta Lee. Greta Lee, and her as Nora, or Na Young as we know her acting in this movie is so phenomenal, and the cues and chemistry between her and her partner in this movie. I'm not going to say his name again because I keep forgetting, and I'm going to butcher it, but their connection as lost soulmates potentially just tells this simple, heartwarming story of how our lives could be different things if things went differently. And it does it in such a poetic way, but also such a simple and gentle and emotional way that it was just such a moving experience. And it's one that I'm going to probably try to see again this weekend, because I don't know how long this type of movie is going to be in theaters. It didn't make the top 10 of the box office last week, but it was a phenomenal movie, and I can't say enough about this film. Past Lives is just a masterpiece, and it is able to use this art form of movies and cinema to tell a very simple story but give it so many different layers, and allow these two actors to show these amazing chemistry together on this amazing journey where they're rediscovering each other, and they're discovering where their lives went, and what life is like in one part of the world in North America, as well as what's life like in the Asian world, in Korea, and areas like that. And it's funny in places. It's so well executed in other places. Its script is so phenomenal. The lines that are given, it's basically three talking characters for majority of the movie. Fourth, if you count Nora's mother, that is in the first kind of quarter of the movie. But it is so so good of a film, and I wasn't sure what I was expecting going into it last weekend, but I came out being like, this is by far the best movie I've seen so far in 2023. It's in theaters currently. I don't know when it'll hit digital if you don't want to see it in theaters, but when it does, if you're looking for a great romantically date movie, watch, Past Lives is it. I can't imagine um, this not being up for awards at the end of the year, especially for Greta Lee and the score of this movie. If it's not up for score, if it's not up for her acting, if it's not up for Best Picture, I will be surprised because it'll either mean one of two things. One, there's a lot of great movies coming on the second half of 2023 to take its place, or two, it's a movie that didn't get seen by the Academy and got lost because it isn't a hyped up piece that comes at the end of the year. And if that happens, it'll be a big disgrace because we should have learned from last year with Everything Everywhere All at Once that you can have the best movie of the year come early in the year. And it deserves to get that praise at the end. And I think Past Lives deserves all the praise that it should get at the end of the year. This is by far the best movie I've seen in 2023, and I recommend if you have a chance to see it in theaters, go see it this weekend. That's my top 10 list of the year so far. Who knows? Things may change. In fact, I'm going to go see a movie tomorrow night, which is July 1st, so it might even be a short review here on the channel called Joyride, and I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up in my top 10 list at the end of the year. But until then, like, subscribe, check out some of my short reviews. I might be doing more long form content here too, and I'll see you later on in the year. And comment down below, what are your top 10 movies of the year? Maybe if you haven't seen 10 yet, tell me your top 5. Tell me your favorite. Who cares? Just tell me your thoughts down below and tell me where I'm wrong. I just love talking about movies, and I wish we can get more people out there doing stuff like this. But until then, I'll see ya.